We have three presenters. One is Dennis Wodzinski, who is the archivist for the Diocese of Pittsburgh, and Daniel Michaels, who's at the National Institute for Newman Studies, and Zach Dahl, who's archivist for the province of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus, Third Order Regular of St. Francis of Penance. Dennis is going to go first, and Dennis got his bachelor's degree at John Carroll University in Cleveland, and his master's degree, and I think that Danny is from the Cleveland area also, if I remember correctly. Dennis got his master's at Duquesne University in public history, so I think there are public history students lined up on the wall. And they're not here for you, Dennis, but they were here for the other folks. They'll be back, I'm sure. And then he was the congregational archivist for the Sisters of St. Francis of the Province of God, and then an archivist and curator for the Diocese of Greensburg, which is where I first met Dennis a number of years ago, and then since 2018, if I'm reading it correctly, he's been the archivist for the Diocese of Pittsburgh. And on Tuesday evenings, Dennis teaches a course at La Roche University, so he's also in the classroom as well as in the archive. And Dennis, if you're ready.
Very good. Thank you for the introduction. It's an honor to be back here at Duquesne University. As mentioned, I spent a significant part of my education here. And I must note, of the three archivists working for the Diocese of Pittsburgh, all three of us have been trained at Duquesne. And I believe Tom White, who's the Duquesne University archivist, did his internship with the Diocese of Pittsburgh. That's right. So there's a great tie to Duquesne here. I just want to point out my title of this presentation is Ministry in the Midst of Merger, Archives as Apostolate. And the focus of this is the situation we find ourselves in the Diocese of Pittsburgh with our on-mission process. I'll explain that a little bit in the role of archives and what we're doing. It's more of a case study, just to say what we're doing. It's not the best approach, it's not the worst approach, it's what we're doing, and perhaps it might work on a religious community level or another level. So this is just what we're doing. I also chose this title maybe as an aspirational title to remind me of what we do. We preserve records, we preserve legal files, et cetera, but we are a ministerial arm of the Diocese of Pittsburgh. And any community that doesn't view it that way will have some issues in the future. We are a ministry, and that must be emphasized. So I'm going to ask myself three questions that I know the answers to, but the three questions will be why, what, and how. The why being the Code of Canon Law, which Casey has introduced us to a little earlier, that establishes why we do what we do at the Diocesan Archives. Then the what is the focus. The Diocese of Pittsburgh Archives in support of the on-mission effort. That's the focus. And the how is our policy from 2017. I think any community, organization, diocese that's going to embark upon a merger or any kind of reconfiguration has to know what their how is. How are you going to get to where you want to be? And we have a policy that outlined it, and we'll see how that policy has affected us over the last couple of years. So the why. The Code of Canon Law, basically put, is the legal arrangement of the Catholic Church. You have the Code of Military Justice. Likewise, the Catholic Church has its own set of laws called canon law, focusing on how sacraments are administered, parishes are administered, et cetera, et cetera. The codes of canon law that affect us are canons 486 to 491. All of them pertain to diocesan and parish archives. And specifically, I'm going to outline canon 486, and I'll just read it. All documents which regard the diocese or parishes must be protected with the greatest care. In every curia, or pastoral center, there is to be established in a safe place a diocesan archive in which instruments and written documents which pertain to the spiritual and temporal affairs of the diocese are to be safeguarded after being properly filed and diligently secured. I mentioned there's no stipulation for an archivist, but an archives must exist. And I emphasize the words safe place, properly filed, diligently secured. Most dioceses have an archive, but we often have to ask ourselves, do we live up to those three components? And it's something I have to ask myself every day working for the Diocese of Pittsburgh. Is it in a safe place, properly filed, and diligently secured? And that's what we hold ourselves. That is what is required by canon law, not just an archive, but one that is in a safe place, properly filed, and diligently secured. Okay, I don't think there's a specific canon. Canon law affects more of the diocesan approach, but religious communities apply these to their archives as well. So we'll also focus on Canon 535, which talks about parish records, and I emphasize that because the Diocese of Pittsburgh is taking in so many parish records. So we are also required to have parochial registers as those of baptisms, marriages, and deaths, and others prescribed by the Conference of Bishops or the diocesan bishop. I'll stop there, but just keep that in mind in regard to what we are doing at the Diocese of Pittsburgh. So a little bit of background of what we have in storage. We are now in what we believe our 5th location. We are in the west end of Pittsburgh. I would characterize ourselves as a mid-sized diocesan archive. The archives of Philadelphia, Boston, Chicago are much bigger because they are archdioceses, and some of those have specifically built structures for archives, but we're a mid-sized archive. We have a staff of 4 full-time staff members, 3 part-timers, and 6 volunteers. Of those staff, 3 are archivists, and we are Duquesne trained archivists. Right now we have files on 423 parishes, missions, and chapels, among other things. But most importantly, right now we have 6,700 plus sacramental books. That makes us one of the largest repositories of sacramental registers in North America. And I say one of the most because I'm thinking we are, but I don't check with every other diocese. So that means a 27% increase in the 2020 calendar year alone. And why was that? Because we are in the midst of a process called On Mission for the Church Alive. That's our what we're talking about today. What the archive is in supporting of this mission. Simply put, On Mission was basically, for those unaware, beginning in April 2015, the Diocese of Pittsburgh was looking at itself, how it was organized, how was it laid out, and was projecting what the diocese would look like in 10 years or so. Do we have the resources to support this? As a result of that, and a lot of intense collaboration, the diocese believed that the process forward included a law reorganization and merger. And what that merger process generally looks like, this is a very simplified way of that. In 2014, 199 parishes existed in the Diocese of Pittsburgh. In the 90s, there were several, well over 300 parishes. At the conclusion of our On Mission project, roughly 50 new parishes will be created. So that means 199 parishes will close or merge, and 50 new parishes will exist. So that has implications for our archives. With that, the oldest parish in the diocese will then date to 2016 because all the parishes will have merged. The first parish to merge was St. Philip's. So that will be our oldest parish in the diocese. So the implications are huge for archives in that regards to our 2017 records policy. That is our how. So prior to the mergers taking place, the diocese accepted a records policy in 2017. The core component of this policy is that whenever a parish is involved in a reconfiguration, the sacramental records, historical records, and records with long-term value be transferred to the Archives and Records Center. Likewise, whenever a school is involved in a reconfiguration, the student records and any historical records will be transferred to the Archives and Records Center as well. So 199 parishes merging. Our policy is if something merges, it comes to us. We have a severe influx of material at the Diocese of Pittsburgh. So this is kind of our model with what we're going through today. So we asked, why did we take such a centralized approach? We learned in the 90s that when we left records with the successor parish, we often lost things, especially with school records. The most drastic example of that was Holy Innocents High School. The school closed in 1973. For the longest time, the parish, the diocese, the archives, we didn't know where those records were. So we'd have someone calling us. I graduated from Holy Innocents in 1960. Where are my transcripts? We'd say, no, we don't have them. Call St. Philip Parish. They'd call St. Philip's Parish. Parish would say, call the school's office. The school's office would say, call archives. It's funny, but it's really not, because that's bad ministry. That means we didn't care that you graduated from high school. Bad records keeping is bad policy, very bad ministry. It's not reassuring that we're taking care of their past. So it just so happened in 2018, they're clearing out some buildings that we found the Holy Innocents High School transcripts on the campus at St. Philip Parish in the Crafton area. So again, bad policy is bad ministry. We emphasize that. Also, this is just another visual example. This is of a register from the former St. Luke Parish in Carnegie. It merged, it closed in the 1990s. This is a result of Hurricane Ivan coming through our area in 2004. The parish at the time was not properly storing its records. There are issues with flooding. Sometimes you can't just do anything, but this record was left on the lower level of a building, and the floodwaters of Chartiers Creek overtook it. So that's one problem. The second problem is the archivist or the sacramental records keeper did not use a proper pen. So we see records that have washed away. That the canonists, the tribunals say if a record's not written down or doesn't exist, the big question is, did that sacrament take place? It's a philosophical question, but it's a tragic question. It again means we didn't place enough value on your baptism. And we've had some sad scenarios with that. So that is another reason why we're doing this. So the implications are, once the parish is merged, the Archives and Records Center will be the custodian of closed parish records, well over 199 plus closed parishes. Thus, we are heavily involved in the maintenance of sacramental registers and the issuance of sacramental certificates. That's a component of work we did not have 10 years ago. So we're very active in that regard. There's a benefit, but obviously there's a problem too. So the scenario I always pose is 2024. When everything has taken place, we have a First Communion class. Every First Communicant in the Diocese of Pittsburgh will have to call us for a baptismal certificate. We've had estimates that perhaps at one point we'll have 1,000 requests a week. So that's a severe implication for us at the archives. This is just another visual of how it's affected our work. Our accessions over the years, beginning in 2015, our typical accession load was roughly, we have 37 accessions. Donations, anytime you give something to archives, it's an accession. So you might give a book to us, and that's an accession. Might give us 20 boxes, that's one accession. Beginning in 2017, we started to see an influx of previously closed parishes. So by 2018, 2019, 2020, we had accessions numbering in the 140s. So 144 accessions in one calendar year. And notable, 2018, in cubic feet, that's the information in orange, we had 1,512 cubic feet of intake in 1 year. And this is the only reason why I brought my box. This is 1 cubic foot. So 1,500 of these, we estimate it takes about 4 hours to process one of those. So in 2018, we had 6,000 hours of work just added to our workload. So it's severe implications for us. There are benefits, but obviously workload is an issue with us. Likewise, our issuance of sacramental certificates has increased exponentially. You can see in the early 2015s, we had a few books. We had 281 certificates issued. Now we're nearing 4,000. You have to factor in COVID had also occurred. And so we haven't really fully seen the full effect of a pure sacramental year yet. So we're going to only increase that workload as well. So there are certain benefits. We are a one-stop shop for parish and sacramental records. If you want to research your parish in Newcastle, Elwood City, you can come here. We have items for you. If you need to research an ancestor, we have the records here at one spot. Even if an individual doesn't know where they were baptized, they would know where subsequent sacraments occurred. So instead of someone calling around the entire diocese, they just call us. And that's nice. That's reassuring. I'm not sure I was baptized, but I went to Holy Innocents High School. Usually that says where your sacraments were listed. Or I graduated in Emsworth. So we can help them track their sacramental life. So that is a pure benefit. That's a great benefit. It shows that we take custody of their records and we believe that they have value. Standards also can be easily maintained by properly trained archive staff. Instead of people from 199 parishes dealing with records, it's one-stop shop for our closed parish records. Also a benefit of our policy, in 2018, the diocese opened the Office of the Patrimony. That means liturgical items, stained glass windows, and anything basically you would characterize as an artifact will be stored essentially by the diocese of a closed parish as well. So that was a good measure by the diocese as well. Drawbacks of our approach has been the volume of work, obviously. We are also getting everybody's records, but we're also getting everybody's problems. So properly maintained book, easily to take care of, but if someone wasn't making the appropriate entries, that's obviously tough to take care of. So also the drawback is we are supporting on mission entirely, largely. So other archival endeavors right now are on the back burner. So that's another cost. We are also processing boxes through the avenues of least resistance, meaning we're going to go through the boxes that are easily labeled and to be dealt with. I'm not going to be dealing with a box of photographs because that's going to take me several hours to deal with. So we're processing through the avenues of least resistance. Also, our diocesan records management program has stalled a bit. I can't be visiting all the diocesan offices because of this as well. So again, why are we doing this? This might work for you as a religious community, it might not, etc. But as leaders, archivists, historians, it is our duty to protect and properly maintain these important records and archives, the documentation of us as a people of God. Again, it's the stress of responsibility that people understand in this time of merger that we're taking care of the records, their photographs. And that's reassuring. Your parish might be different now, but your records are being properly preserved and maintained. It's reassuring. I stress the key to solving problems of poor records management is education, more education and oversight. To inform your sisters, your brothers of what you're doing and keep telling them that. And also oversight. It has a negative connotation perhaps, but if someone knows you're watching them about something, they understand that that's important. If you're checking in on how they're maintaining the records, that's very important. Okay? And like I said, I stress this as a ministry of reassurance for the Diocese of Pittsburgh Archives. People want to know that they mattered, that they were and part of something larger than themselves, and they want to know that the records are being maintained properly and appropriately. If we do a poor job of maintaining our history and our records, what really does that say about us and who we are? So it's the ministry of reassurance that we are an appropriate repository for the history of Catholicism in Western PA. So you can contact us at our website, send us an email, but that's largely what we're doing. We have a very centralized approach in Pittsburgh. Again, it might not work in all dioceses or communities, but that's what we're doing here. So thank you.